I am mining investor and editor of Resource Stock Digest, Gerardo Del Real, here with my partner, Mr. Nicolas Hodge, who's also an investor and the publisher of Daily Profit Cycle. This is the 352nd episode of our weekly therapy session that we call Investing in Bizarro World. Spoiler alert, everything's going to be okay on the market side. Societally, not so sure. We'll get into all of that. We're going to talk markets, what we're looking at, a brand new gold antimony deal that we're excited to roll out. And of course, we're going to get into some of the nastiness that is going on, not just in our country, but obviously and clearly around the world. Before we get to all of that, Mr. Hodge, it's been another week. We seem to be in the good graces of the market because every Thursday when we record this live, we get ourselves just some whipsaw action to get in here and either cheerlead about or tell people to calm down, that it's going to be okay, that we're within, the ranges that we've outlined. So I want to get into all of that, but first and foremost, how are you, sir?
I'm doing very well, Gerardo, as I have been for weeks and weeks on end, embracing the volatility across sectors, metals, and S&P included, gearing up for the Super Bowl. As you say, kids are healthy, wife still loves me, everything is good. How are you, Gerardo?
Checking all boxes still, thankfully, knocking on wood, and hoping that the trend continues. The trend is our friend on that front. So no, look, let's get right into it. We had, we talk every day, multiple times a day, and I've said and I've written that I think the consolidations that used to take weeks and months now take days, right? And sometimes hours. And we've seen, I think, a classic example of that again today. We've seen silver as high as 82, as low as 72, currently at the $74 level. But clearly, there's a lot of paper shorting going on and people trying to either work their way out of positions that blew up on them, or initiate new positions that they think they can leverage. So same with the gold price, 4,800, 4,812 as we speak. I got to provide a bit of context for everyone out there. If you would have told me 12 months ago that we'd be at $4,800 gold and $74 silver and nearly $6 copper, and that people would be freaking out, I would have laughed at you, and I would have said, you know what? I'll take the other side of that. I'll take 48. If 4,800 is the new low and 72, 73, 74 is the new low on the silver side, and 575, 580 on the copper side is the new low on the spot price, we're in damn good shape, folks. But I'd love to hear your take. You're more the technician than I am. What do you see? What do you feel? What does it look like? Forget what you feel. What do you see technically?
Yeah, I'll go right to the chart. It's already up. So this is the volatility index. As you can see here, it's been going largely down and to the right. Probably you got to pull back a little too far there, but not a lot of volatility out here in S&P land. Spiked up above 20 here recently. You see the S&P selling off a little bit. I don't see a ton to worry about. I still see inflation coming down. I still see healthy economic growth. This is mostly attributed to sell-offs in the tech space, specifically the software space, which I'm sure many of you have seen headlines about. I think Apocalypse was in my inbox multiple times from the Andrew Ross Sorkins of the world and the Bloomberg newsletters talking about AI eating software's lunch. And so you've got a bit of rolling over of tech, of course, which is, heavily weighted in the S&P. We know all about the FANG and the MAG and all that sort of stuff. So when those stocks get a little wonky, you get a little bit of volatility and sell-offs in the S&P, but still pretty damn close to record highs, and the breadth has widened out. Other sectors starting to lead, cyclicals like industrials and materials, etc. So I don't think a lot to be overly concerned about. I would mention Kevin Warsh, who is the new, Fed nominee. He won't be in that chair until Jerome Powell's tenure is up, which isn't until May, unless he chooses to step down. And you've got a lot of people talking about this guy being a hawk, which he is not. If you look at Trump is talking about he's wanted rates lower now for some time. So the market is pricing that in after the changing of the guard there. You got a 50-50 chance of a rate cut at the June meeting, so everything will be okay there. But what I really wanted to point you to was a different volatility index, and that's the GVZ, the Gold Volatility
That
Index.
one's a doozy.
Yeah, because that's really the reason you're getting the swings in the precious metals. So you can see as we ran up here to $5,600 gold while we were in Vancouver there the last week of January, everybody was giddy. We went to 5,600. And what happens, as I've explained, but we've got a lot of new viewers on this podcast, and so it's worth going over some of the basics, is that when volatility goes up, the price swings are obviously wider to the upside and to the downside. And you've got a gold volatility index that is really elevated here. I mean, went all the way up to, on the wick of the candle, almost 50, right? So imagine 50 on the VIX, you'd have huge swings on the S&P, and that's what you're seeing now in the precious metal space. But do not be concerned too much. Use it to buy the dips, as we've been saying, because gold is bullish down to 4,600 or thereabouts, and you're even $200 above that now. Silver could go down to 68, 69, 70 and be okay, and I believe you're at 74, 75 or higher dollar silver now, although it's been moving so fast, you got to sort of watch it every single hour. What else? I'll just keep it up for one more second if you let me hog the mic. Let's talk about the dollar, and we'll talk about rates, and then I'll stop sharing my screen. But the dollar still doesn't want to get out of bed. It's strengthened a little bit in the past couple of days on that hawkish narrative with Mr. Kevin Warsh, but I don't think that's really going to be the case. You can see, I told you last week, my Trump is still up there. It's down and to the right. It doesn't want to get above 100. Certainly doesn't want to get above sort of this level right here, 97 and change, 98. It will likely gravitate back towards that as the market, comes to know Mr. Warsh, and as the dovish words start coming out of his mouth, and as we get closer to that May stepping down of Jerome Powell. And then the last thing I would show you is probably just the 2-year yield, which is indicative of what the Fed is going to do, and it's telegraphing plain as day that this was on here from another time, but look at this right here. This 2-year yield is telling you the Fed's not going to raise rates. This isn't a hawkish individual, and that will ultimately bode well for precious metals prices as you get into these rate cuts in the second half of the year. So throwing a lot at you there in the first 7 minutes here of Bizarro World, but again, lots of new readers here. Want to tell them, get them in our headspace, tell them how we look at things, and ultimately not pound the table, but tell you that the gold and silver complex is still bullish, intact, not in danger of going into a bear market, and use this volatility to take advantage of dips, even across the board in companies that are reporting good earnings and good drill results. I saw both today. Like, Barrick was out with results were pretty good, raised their dividend, the stock sold off. Arrow Copper, which I've talked about a lot, reported record results, sold off 8 to 10%. I saw other companies with good drill results that were selling off. So, like you say, Gerardo, know what you want to own, know what you own, and know why. And I did a lot of buy-in today. And in the past couple of days, I was writing about it in Underground Alpha. We talked about buy under prices last week. So that's a real long answer. I'll give it back to you. What else? What do you say?
That's a great answer. I think I have the title for this episode, Swingin' Metals. That's what we're calling this one. Episode 352, Swingin' Metals. No, look, I see a lot of the same thing. I think that people have gotten, especially people new to this bull market in the precious metal space, have gotten accustomed over the past several months to just see green on their screen every day, and to just see their favorite junior developer or producer green for most days. And that's not the way that bull markets are supposed to function, folks. It's supposed to be orderly. Orderly is not in the 2026 cards. It's going to be volatile. The volatility in the metal space is going to continue. You should welcome that, and you should be buying the dips when you are able to. I have bids in today that if they get filled, great. I'll add to existing positions, large positions. And if they don't get filled, my existing large positions recover and go higher, even though we're up, quite a bit on all of those big, large positions. So I say all that to say pullbacks are healthy. Consolidations are good. And yes, they are more volatile and violent, but they're also shorter in duration. And that to me is welcomed, just the way that I am wired and kind of the way that I approach things. I'd rather a 1, 2 day, 3 day consolidation that's 15, 20% down than seeing that bleed out for a month or two and still have a 15 to 20% consolidation. Let's get to where we're going, folks. And I think by the end of the year, I hate to do the crystal ball thing, but look, you talked about precious metals and you talked about monetary policy. And when you look at fiscal policy, we're not doing anything about the debt, folks. We're adding to it. That's what we're doing. So that hasn't been resolved. No one's addressing that. There's one politician that, consistently calls out this administration and has done it with both sides. That's Thomas Massey from Kentucky. I actually donated to his campaign. It's the only guy really outside of him and Rand Paul maybe that is for the First Amendment, for the Second Amendment, for the Fourth Amendment, wants, and we'll talk about all this stuff later on, wants the Epstein files released with the victims' names redacted, not the predators, not the perpetrators of these crimes, as this administration is doing. I donated to his campaign because I saw that, the day after the latest release of the Epstein files, $1 million in ads against them by a pro-Israeli PAC came out. And so don't agree with all of his policies, but man, he's got it right on a lot of the stuff that I'm really passionate about. So I say all that to say that on the fiscal side of things and the monetary side of things, the debt's exploding. That'll continue to explode for a long time. They're not fixing that anytime soon. And policy, we talked about the new Fed chair coming in, but the structural demand, the Tether is buying, tens and tens of tons of gold, on a weekly and monthly level. That's going to continue. They were out in mass this week saying, yeah, we're buying this dip and we're in the market. And we actually welcome the pullback and the opportunity. Central banks, even Scott Bessent admitted that, yes, he has heard discussions of China creating a gold-backed currency, which would really explain, if they're doing it in alliance with some of the countries that are friendlier towards China and not so friendly towards us, really explains, one, in part the dollar weakness, but two, the violent moves to the upside on the gold price, right? Where you're seeing 3, 4, 5% moves that typically happen overnight. I don't think that's a coincidence. They happen when the Asian markets are open. The beatdowns tend to happen when the US market opens, and it doesn't always work out like that, but we've seen a trend that I think is pretty clear over the past couple of months. I think that trend continues, which, look, if we're going to touch on volatility, I'm a contrarian, folks. For those of you that are new to this space, pullbacks are opportunities for me. If you know what you're buying, if you know what you own, if you know why you're adding, and if your thesis is still playing out on both the macro and the specific companies that you're allocating capital towards. So me being a contrarian at heart, I love this little pullback in uranium. It went from like 85 to 100 on the spot price. The contract price, we'll talk about that, which is the more important one of the two. But now we've had a pretty severe pullback, if you want to call it that, to like the high 80s or the mid 80s again. And uranium volatility is healthy and a sign to me of the shaking of the tree before the real significant next leg higher. I think the move in the past week or two in the equities and the spot price was a bit ahead of itself. I think this correction back to normal levels, levels where we were a few weeks ago, is healthy. And I think it absolutely is a sign of higher uranium prices to come. Now, I'm going to hog the mic for a quick second here. But look, with uranium, everybody focuses on the spot price. And really, it's the contract price, folks, that you should be looking at. That's where the bulk of the demand is going to come from. And the contract price right now, they're negotiating uranium between $95 as a floor and $160 as a ceiling. That is the range with which utilities feel comfortable locking in supply of uranium for a fixed amount of time, for years on end. They're comfortable paying anywhere between $95 and $160. There's a lot of runway between $85, $90 and $160, folks. My question is this, looking ahead, which is kind of what I tend to do, right? The great Wayne Gretzky has that quote, go to where the puck is going, not to where the puck is. That is 160 being the ceiling for companies that can get supply negotiated right now in this market is one thing. What happens when the supply is no longer available and the utilities are willing to pay $200, $225 to make sure they have supply? Because I got to tell you, folks, if half of this electrification of everything, as Nick calls it, and the tech bros with their data centers and all the AI ambitions, if half of it plays out, there is going to be a severe structural deficit that's going to materialize that will lead to much, much higher uranium prices. And I have to tell you, folks, those utilities don't care if they pay 95 to 160. It's such a small input. They don't care if they pay 160 to 225. It's a tiny input in their overall cost of production. And so I'm excited for what comes next with uranium. I'm excited to see, lithium continue to hold in there. Latest mini consolidation in the last week to week and a half. I think that's healthy after a drastic run up from, oversold bottoms. So as panicked as people are out there, everything looks peaches to me. Everything looks within range and everything's doing exactly what I hoped it would do. Only it's happening quicker, and I actually welcome that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the broader themes in general. Things are happening faster with the pace of technological innovation and the pace of the spread of information, et cetera, the poly markets of the world, and just knowing things faster, whether they come from leaks or whatever. I'm going to go back to gold for 1 second, and then I'll touch on uranium. You mentioned Tether. We mentioned it last week, and I finally had a chance to watch the fireside chat that was going around. It was back in December, I think. Canaccord hosted this fireside chat with his name is Juan Sartori of Tether and Tether Gold, and he gave a great presentation. It was like 57 minutes long about what Tether's doing, what Tether Gold is doing.
Yep.
He's also the chairman of Elemental Royalties, by the way, which I'll touch more on in a second because of their foray into the gold royalty space. And I jotted down some notes. I was going to put it in the upcoming issue of Foundational Profits. He was saying, and I'm quoting him now, and we've been buying a bunch of gold lately. We had a rhythm of buying 2 tons per week, approximately 260 million tons per week of physical gold. And we've now ramped that up to 3 tons per week because we're receiving more subscriptions. So the way it works is, you can put $1 into Tether Gold. It trades at the same price. If you pull it up on your trading view or on your little crypto app, it trades at the same price of gold. It's 1-to-1, no fees. So you're buying a physically backed product that you can use for liquidity or settling transactions or whatever it is. And when more inflows come into that Tether Gold stablecoin, they use that money to buy gold, just like the Tether stablecoin uses that money to buy U.S. treasuries. And he says he expects the trajectory of that to continue to ramp up as more people come into Tether Gold. They'll just be using that money to buy physical gold, which they built their own vault for in Switzerland. And the other thing that they've been doing is going down chain, because he was saying there's only so much gold available to buy. They're starting to go into the high end producers, the majors. And then he really talked about royalties as a safe way to buy gold. And I've been talking about that for a couple of months now with that Gold Scripts promotion, saying that, you don't have the operational risk. Yep. You have a right to buy gold at a certain price. And that's exactly what he was saying. They've gone into Elemental Royalty, as I said. They've gone into Versamet, as you might know. And they've gone into a couple of other ones. And he even floated the idea of having a Tether royalty, a Tether Gold royalty coin. So a lot to like there from the amount of buying that's coming in via Tether. And then over to uranium, which is what you were talking about. I read the numbers last week, but I'll read them again because there's so many new people. 200 million pounds a year is the replacement rate. That's what the utilities need to be replacing, and they've only been buying half that for the past 10 or 15 years. So they use a pound of uranium. They only replace half of that, and they've been, working through stockpiles for the past couple of years that are now worked through. Stockpiles don't last forever if you're burning them down, right? And so with that being the case, the World Nuclear Association says that for the next couple of years, 14 years until 2040, we'll have a shortfall of 70 million pounds per year. That's what you were saying, Gerardo. What happens when the uranium isn't available to contract? Well, the prices have to go up. And that's a cumulative deficit of over 1 billion pounds of uranium in the next 14 years. So, a couple of things I wanted to mention. Google had earnings, or Alphabet, whatever you want to call it, this week, and the sheer scale of the amount of capital expenditure that they're doing to build out data centers, it's staggering. I forget the number off the top of my head, but 180 billion sticks out for 2020. I looked at a couple of charts. To meet the power demand for that is staggering, and it's almost undoable without vast amounts of capital coming in to the nuclear and the uranium space. We were just talking a couple of weeks ago about how cold it was on the eastern seaboard and in the mid-Atlantic region, and how the PJM interconnect was already at capacity just with a week of cold weather. When you start adding on these data centers, I mean, you really need a lot more juice. And just a couple of other things. I won't go over all the uranium fundamentals, but I saw Pete Buttigieg tweeting recently, disingenuously, that Trump was blocking energy projects because he was delaying solar and wind. And look, man, solar and wind are great for certain things, but they're not great to power data centers when we're talking
Correct.
about the need for stable base load demand and the power storage. The batteries aren't there yet, right? Like, you don't see these companies, Google, Meta, Apple, Amazon, announcing huge investments and partnerships in wind facilities and solar facilities to power their data centers. You know, they're going right to the nukes, right? We had the 3 Mile Island
Yep.
announcement last year. We've seen Kathy Hochul in New York say she's going to expand nuclear in her state. And so the other side of that tweet is, Trump is very much not stymied energy production. It's one of the
Correct.
things he's actually done right. So, I replied to Pete Buttigieg. I'm sure he'll read it. I'm
Good
saying that,
luck.
look, there's a lot of reasons not to like Mr. Trump. ICE and Epstein and Israel and nepotism and crypto shenanigans and all sorts of shit, right? But the one thing you can't knock the guy for is stymieing U.S. energy production. I mean, he's really greased the wheels of
Yes.
oil and gas and nuclear and uranium and mineral production through all sorts of mechanisms, cutting red tape, fast tracking permitting, taking direct stakes in it, offering price floors. And that's so the truth is, this administration is very much behind uranium, and the subtext or the subcontext of that tweet is just political hackery,
Yep.
partisan hackery, right? It's
Yep.
disingenuous to tweet that out, Mr. Buttigieg, saying that this guy is stymieing energy production when, again, for all his faults, and stymieing energy production is not one of the things he's done. So, and last thing there is, I think there's some meetings going on with Korea, and I was hearing murmurs of, we have all these trade meetings going on
Yeah.
back and forth, but I heard there could potentially be a new U.S. nuclear plant be announced, and that would also be lovely to see, and could potentially add some buoyancy to the sector. So, a lot to like in the uranium space for sure.
No, look, and again, for those that are newer to this podcast, first off, thank you for coming on. Thank you for joining us. Look, critical metals are going to continue to be in the spotlight, right? It's one of the few things that has bipartisan support. That includes uranium here in the U.S. and around the world, in a world that, seemingly every day becomes more polarized and more fractured. And we'll get to, some of the stuff that just breaks my heart that we can't even agree on. But when it comes to critical metals, Nick and I have been on this since 2010, 2011. I was consulting slash learning the business from a mentor friend of mine, and Nick, had already launched his career writing up solar and talking beryllium, if I recall, right? Had a promo about beryllium in 2011, I think you wrote about
Oh
recently.
man, ICB Advanced Alloys. Yeah, I was doing some promos back in the day.
There you go. In 2016, we were at the Stibnite project, then Midas Gold, now Perpetua Resources. And, we were arguing then that the antimony would be a strategic and important factor in that gold mine being permitted, which it now has its permit. It's got financing in place and, starting to get built. And so, look, this isn't new to us. We've been able to get ahead of this trend early, and we've been able to do really, really well with it, fortunately. Perpetua Resources, Perpetua, I mess up the pronunciation every time, but made damn good money with it, right? It ran to as low as $2 or $3 when we did a promotion, I think 2 years ago or something like that, 2.5 years ago, time flies, and ran to $49 here recently, right? In the portfolio, we're up some 500% on that stock. Again, we kept it in there because we knew it was a world-class gold deposit. We knew it had the antimony kicker, and we were fairly confident the permitting would come through because of the antimony. I'll do you one better. We had a company in Australia, Southern Cross Gold Consolidated, used to be called Mawson Gold, had a portfolio of very, very potentially high-grade gold projects in Australia. And one of those projects was called Sunday Creek. And the reason that was drilled first is, one, they understood Sunday Creek better than the other two. But two, it had an interesting antimony kicker as well. That went from like a $30-40 million company to what today is a $2.6 billion company, right? Kudos to Michael Hudson and his team, because that's a position that at one point was down 50% in our portfolio. That position is up, I believe, some 1,300%. That's 1,300% in the portfolio right now and going higher. And again, even though the antimony only contributes to 20% of the potential economics, the strategic value and importance of that antimony provides a lot of confidence. There's a reason that the Pierre Lassans of the world are cornerstone investors and large shareholders of that company. So I wrote about this earlier in the week. It warms my capitalist and contrarian heart to have a brand new deal for subscribers of our private placement service, PPI, Private Placement Intel. It's a gold deal in Australia with a very interesting, curious antimony kicker. The gold, the old timers have gone in there with like shovels and tractors and just dug up trenches and come up with like hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of very high grade gold, just kind of shoveling it out, right? And so it's never really been drilled or tested with modern technology. It's got a $7 million market cap. We're taking the entire thing. We're offering it to subscribers. Nick and I will both personally be participating. And look, I'm not telling you it's going to go from a $7 million market cap to a $2.6 billion market cap. I'm also not telling you it's not, because that's just the way this game works, right? But I am telling you this, at a $7 million market cap, Nick and I are giving ourselves, family, friends, and our subscribers a pretty damn good chance to make a triple or quadruple digit return in relatively short time with the kind of market that we have for both gold and for antimony. Will that require some success with what Mother Nature left behind? Absolutely. That's exploration for you. But again, we mitigate the risk by knowing the team, vetting the share structure, vetting the asset, and then getting in early enough to where we can provide you access and get you a seat at the table. And I hope those of you that aren't subscribers and are accredited take us up on one of the few spots that we have remaining. I don't know what we're down to now, Nick. 50s,
67.
67. We're down to 67 spots, and then we shut that off forever. And look, folks aren't letting go those spots very often because fortunately, you know, they've done well and we've done well. So critical metals, it's going to continue to be a theme over the next several years, not a theme that goes away the way it did in 2010, 2011. It wasn't structural then, it was political. This time it's geopolitical and structural in nature. And the next big industries, the AIs and the technology wars that are going on, depend on a lot of these critical metals. So do governments for national security, and with heightened tensions around the world, it's going to continue to be a dominant theme. So get off the sidelines, folks. This is the market to do it in. Don't let this volatility scare you off. Again, look at a chart. Look at a 30-day chart. Look at a 60-day chart. Look at a 1-year chart. Look at a 10-year chart for gold, for silver, for copper, for antimony, for tin. I could continue. The trend is your friend on this, folks. Our job is to mitigate the risk and bring you good deals. I'm going to keep working hard to do that.
Yeah, you mentioned Perpetua there, formerly Midas Gold, here just 5 hours south of me in Stibnite, Idaho, which is the host rock or mineral that the stibnite is in. It's stibnite, yep. And that's what these deposits in Australia have as well. It's antimony hosted in stibnite. And as you said, we put boots on the ground on that a decade ago, and when it was called Midas Gold, and knew that the antimony would be the reason that one day it got permitted, and that has certainly come to pass. The Department of Defense has given that company money. It's now broken ground and is being constructed, and still there's zero U.S. antimony production in the United States. So I ran into Mr. Stephen Quinn the other week in Vancouver, who was the former CEO of Midas Gold. And, you know, I had heard him present numerous times over the years, and I've heard some of the stories numerous times, but maybe I'll just relay one of them. He was saying that, you know, he recalls meeting with the Pentagon and the federal government, yep, back in, you know, 2011, 2012, 2013, and explaining to them the precariousness of the antimony supply and how it all came from China. And he was telling me that, you know, officials would say, oh, there's no problem. We can get as much antimony as we want. We just hit up our trade company that's US based, and then we buy antimony. And I guess wherever they were having the meeting, there was some bags of antimony in the room or the warehouse or wherever they were having it. And Stephen Quinn was saying, yeah, but do you know where that antimony comes from? And the government guy was saying, well, yeah, it comes in these bags and it comes from the trade company
Comes in
that
these
we buy.
bags. That is such a government answer. That is such a government answer. We're gonna read the Constitution in a little bit here because that is such a government answer, man.
Yeah, and Stephen Quinn was saying, yeah, but do you know where it actually comes from? And he goes over and he pulls the tag on the bag, and it's like, Shandong Manufacturing Company or whatever. The antimony's coming from China, and they weren't getting through
It's
their
like Trump Bibles.
Yeah,
It's like Trump Bibles, Make America Great Again Bibles that are made in China. I can't make this stuff up.
And the hats, yeah. So they didn't understand that they were dependent on China, and they're now starting to get it in true government fashion. It's taken 15 years, but now we're throwing gobs of money at the stuff. So let me hog the mic for just 1 second again, and tell you what's happened in just the past couple of weeks. And sometimes I get jaded because, as you were saying, I've been writing about this stuff for 15 years. It was so clear to me that, when people finally start getting it, it's like, yeah, no shit, man. Like, I've known this for 15 years. Welcome to the fucking party. Anyway, so just in the past couple of weeks, the U.S. government launched a strategic critical minerals stockpile. It is called Project Vault, $12 billion, funded by the Export-Import Bank to give loans to the private sector. And guess what they're targeting, Gerardo? Antimony, tantalum, scandium, germanium, bismuth, indium. I could go on, but I won't. In addition to that, the Trump administration launched an effort to form a trade zone for critical minerals with allies, including Japan and the EU. These are the Financial Times words, as it battles to break China's control of the sector. Mr. Marco Rubio, who is now Secretary of State, had a party, not a party, I should say, a meeting with representatives from more than 50 countries in the past week. They called this the inaugural Critical Minerals Ministerial. Say that 3 times. And they're dedicating it to securing critical minerals and the supply chain for those. These are all separate events, by the way, coming from the federal government. Fourth thing that happened just this week or last week, the United States and Mexico unveiled a plan to develop coordinated trade policies aimed at mitigating vulnerabilities in critical minerals supply chains. There's those words again, critical minerals, including potential price floors for certain mineral imports. There was a false story going around the other week that the government was going to abandon price floors for these. Well, they're not. The vice president came out and said, that's fake news. We have a deal with MP Materials that offers them a price floor for rare earth metals, and we're going to continue doing that for other companies and other metals because we need these so badly. And then all the way across the sphere, Australia has prioritized antimony, gallium, and rare earth elements as part of a $1.2 billion strategic reserve. So look, from Europe to Japan to Australia to Mexico to United States, billions, in this case tens of billions, are being dedicated to securing these metals and minerals. And guess what? As we've been saying for the past 15 years, there's not a lot of quality places to get them. The existing mines are old. New mines take 10 to 15 years to come online. And you can see what happens when companies get onto a deposit that can be produced in the near term, because Gerardo just went through them. Perpetua Resources, $3 or $4 to $50 inside of a year. Southern Cross Gold they financed it at 16 cents in 2021. And that's, you might know off the top of your head, but that's a $2.6 billion company, as you said, trading at, I think, above $10 or
close
$9
to 10,
or
close
something
to 10
like
bucks.
that.
Correct.
Right? So 60 cents or 16 cents to $10 is good work in a couple of years if you can get it. And that's a result of the utter dependence these governments have on these minerals, and again, not a lot of good places to get them. So to echo what Gerardo was saying, that's our job, to go out and find the good deals, the good people, the good structured deals, because Lord knows I've seen some horribly structured deals. And we get
see
into
them every week.
Oh my God, I saw one today. I won't even get into it.
The
Negative
stuff
work.
we say no to on our behalf and on your behalf, subscribers and readers and members of the audience, you would be surprised the stuff that gets shown to us. And the buffers and the protection that we provide, because oh my lord, are there people out there willing to present you just about anything to take your hard-earned dollars, folks. And look, all of our stuff isn't going to work, but the track record's pretty damn good, and there's a reason for that. I should ask you what you got pitched. Can you
Just 2 seconds. This guy hits me up on LinkedIn today, and he's like, "Hey man, can I pitch you this deal in Nevada? It's a gold deal on the Nevada-Utah border. It's got a resource on it, a couple 100,000 ounces, but it's low grade, half a gram per ton or something like that. But listen, negative working capital, nearly.
Can I borrow some money and some sugar, please?
nearly 300 million shares outstanding. Hasn't done a press release or anything really since 2024. I go to the website to look at the presentation. Hasn't been updated since 2024. And this guy's hitting me up for capital. Come on, man. We're in 2026. You got 300. Anyway, so back to what Gerardo was saying. It's our job to vet good deals and find them. And that's what we've got here with this gold antimony new project in Australia that's raising a couple of $1 million, and we'll drill it this year with gold on surface and the same sort of geology of well, you mentioned Sunday Creek and Southern Cross Gold, but Fosterville, for example, which led to the takeout by Kirkland Lake, which was then absorbed by Agnico Eagle. This Correct. Is globally important stuff here.
Yeah, and look, I want to add one more thing. The QP on that asset that's got the gold and the antimony that will get drilled this year, later on this year. We know the QP very well. We know the CEO of this company. We know the people. This is a vetting process. I'm trying to give you some insight, folks, so bear with me. We know the group that reviewed the deal for the QP, that reviewed the project for the CEO. So when we say due diligence, we don't mean like typing up on a website, sitting on our chair, and then just doing a presentation and going, "Oh, I like the way that looks," and that's a flashy website. That looks like a good deal. No. It's really digging into who's behind the project. How'd you get the project? Who did you option it from? Why didn't anyone else pick it up? Who did the 43-101? Who did the qualifying transaction? Who's the person that, all of those things? If we can trace it, and oftentimes, most times we can, that gives us the degree of confidence to be able to tell a company, hey, we'll take that $2 million and raise it for you between ourselves, our group, friends, family, and our subscribers. And fortunately, again, we've had a good record and a good track record, especially the last several years, even in bear markets, of delivering. So going to keep working hard, and I really hope y'all join us for this one. This one should be a fun one to watch go. We have one that we financed 2 months ago that will be public soon. I could say, should I say the name? Just give it to them for free so they could watch it in real time.
Sure.
This will be the freebie of the day, folks. I should keep it to the premium portion of the podcast, but watch V10 Capital. It's basically a company with an asset that's joint venture to Newmont, but the company's looking for other assets. We know the CEO very well. We know the board very well. We helped finance it a couple of months ago. We knew the stock would be halted. It made a qualifying transaction. It should be trading within the next week to week and a half. So everybody that participated in that financing, I would love for y'all to see what that does over the next several months and throughout the year, because that is a great example of another deal where we knew the people, we knew the asset, we know the people behind the scenes, and we're happy to write checks for it individually, as a group, and with our subscribers. So that's the freebie of the day. This is going to be a long one, folks, because there's a lot going on. I don't know. Look, I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that it seems like this administration, for all the credit I give them on the critical metal side, and I give them all the credit, they've been phenomenal for us on that front. They deserve kudos. They're doing almost everything right. I can make an argument that the 12 billion should be bigger in scope, but I believe that's coming actually. So for all the credit they get there, they're butchering the Constitution, folks. They're going one at a time, and they're not even hiding it anymore. And if you thought the butchering of the Constitution was bad, we now have another set of Epstein files that has been released. And I have to say, folks, the stuff that was considered like fringe cult, conspiracy theory stuff is like the least tragic and heartbreaking stuff that's in some of these files. So I don't know if you want to start with the dismantling of our Constitution by this administration, or the unwillingness of our government to arrest anyone. We have dead babies. We have cannibalism. We have emails between very powerful folks where they just got a 9-year-old. She's Brazilian. We have death traps underneath boats that lead directly into the sea. This is not conspiracy file stuff or conspiracy theory stuff. This is actually documented stuff in the file. And then this administration has the nerve to redact the name of the predators, but in many cases, not redact the nude bodies of the children, nor the names. And then the Speaker of America, the Speaker of our great country, has the nerve to go on national television this weekend and tell me that it's not a crime to party with Jeffrey Epstein. And there's been 0 arrest. I don't understand. Well, there's been an arrest. Ghislaine Maxwell, who got transferred to minimum security and has a puppy. Sex offenders don't get minimum security with puppies, folks. So I don't know where you want to start, but I think it all kind of ties in together. I guess I already did with the Epstein stuff, right? It hurts my heart that for all of our differences, we can't unite as a country and just agree that anybody from any country in any position, no matter what their last name, financial status, cultural status, that we should be able to rally around. We want everybody arrested that had anything to do with the murder, rape, the cannibalism that's going on with these children. Some of the videos are just absolutely sickening. I don't understand why that is a polarizing issue for a lot. For most apparently. I mean, we're still clearly divided as a country. For all the stuff I really dislike Hillary Clinton about, all Hillary said, yeah, put me on the mic and give me some cameras. I talk to you. Holler at me. You know what Donald Trump's immediate reaction was? I don't know why they're going after Bill, man. I like Bill a lot. They should just leave Bill alone. He told us we should quit talking about it. He had the nerve when asked by Caitlin Collins, a reporter, a very good reporter, by the way, what he would say to the Epstein survivors and victims. He looked at her and said, "You don't smile enough. You're a horrible reporter. This is fake news." That was his response to the victims. So we went from the files don't exist to we got the files and we're getting them. And you're going to get all the Democrats, the Bill Gates and the Obamas and the Clintons are all in there. And maybe they are. And if they are, again, away with them. I don't care. To we can't possibly share the most gruesome part. To this weekend, Mike Johnson tells me it's not illegal to party with Jeff Epstein and simultaneously telling me that they're not publishing the pictures of the dead children or the names. As in, there are dead children and they have the names. And there have been 0 arrests other than Ghislaine for this. And Jeffrey Epstein back in Florida when he got a sweetheart deal where he could go out on the weekend and rape some more and then come back and he got credit for the time. Thoughts, anyone?
Oh, it's insane, Gerardo. And for as much information and names and pictures that are in there, you'd think you'd get a lot more media coverage of it. But from the liberal rags like the LA Times and the New York Times all the way to Fox News, ain't nobody want to talk about it all that much because you already mentioned Thomas Massie, as he's been saying, people are going to get embarrassed. Names are going to come out that write you guys checks, right? Like your donors and your backers. And that's ultimately what these politicians want to protect. Look, I've been saying for a long time that you shouldn't be in office to get rich. And yet we see on both sides of the aisle that it's a pretty damn good way to increase your net worth to become elected a senator or a representative in the House. And that's because of this cabal. Well, I would call it the Beltway cabal, but it's global, as we're seeing
Global.
from these Epstein files that are released from the royal family in Britain to Ehud Barak, the former Israel prime minister, to Silicon Valley billionaires such as Bill Gates, to Elon Musk, to owners of professional sports teams, and on down the line. And yeah, there's a ton of crazy stuff in there, right? Like I saw one thing about Trump and other folks having vetting these girls and like sizing up the tightness of their vaginas to see if they were like ones that they would want. And so that particular one, which I had seen going around Twitter, and I'm just using that as an example, we're getting to, you mentioned cannibalism and other stuff. Some of those have been discredited. We don't entirely know what is true, and that's partially what makes this so difficult, is they won't give us all the information and all the truth to truly know the scope and what happened. But you can only imagine, given some of the accusations and what some of these survivors have said. And that's a whole nother component, right? I mean, these ladies and women and girls have been saying this for years, and in some cases have gag orders or have been threatened and intimidated. And no one truly believed them, even after Epstein was accused of, soliciting minors for prostitution. I believe that was back in 2013. So, what has emerged is a global good old boy system. I saw there's a gentleman named Matt Stoller who writes a lot about monopolies and big governments and things like that. And he says he was equating this to the old, a Russian way of doing business. I think it's called BLAT. You can Google it, BLAT, where essentially it's a good old boy network where these elites, these officials, these billionaires, these oligopolists use this network that Epstein facilitated and provided to skirt the legal and accepted ways of doing things, not just the sex and the rape, but you see what was going on there with, famous New York attorneys asking Epstein to facilitate getting their kids jobs, and another gentleman asking where he could procure a super yacht from, doing it in back channels, and ultimately using the sex and the rape and the child trafficking as, blackmail and favor begetting, right? There was one report about Epstein's ranch in New Mexico having won a lottery of $80 million. I mean,
twice.
How does
Twice.
a trust in New Mexico win the lottery twice, right? Go Google that and read about it, and the airstrip that he put in, and the reports about the vans of kids and children coming and going, emerging now that was likely the center of the child trafficking network. And, it goes on both sides. I was talking the other week in this podcast about Kathy Rumler, who was
attorney,
a big time attorney in the Obama administration, and is now a big time attorney at Goldman Sachs, right? And so on to Elon Musk. And then there was a big another attorney, Brad Karp, who just resigned yesterday at a law firm called Paul Weiss, that, by the way, kowtowed to the Trump administration in recent years, when Trump was going after administration or law firms that he was saying weren't beneficial to the administration. And that law firm, headed by Brad Karp, which is he's now stepped down from, was one of the law firms that said, no, like, we'll play ball with you, right? Like, on to Bill Gates, giving his wife penicillin so she didn't catch an STD that he got from a Russian prostitute. On to Elon Musk saying, which day or night is going to be the biggest party at your
wildest
island.
Party.
Yeah. On to Steve Tisch, owner or co-owner of the New York Giants. It's just nasty and nepotistic, and it's the reason that folks should be up in arms, but aren't, for the large part, because, as you said, they get entrenched in their partisan ways, right? All so much so that you get the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, and I saw his little ass up there on Meet the Press as well, saying, "Oh, it's not illegal to party." Bullshit. Partying's not what they were doing. It's clear as day to see, and to still be putting out those files and redacting them is just a finger in the eye of the citizens of this nation. It's fucking horrible.
And just humanity in the world, not even the citizens of this nature. If there's one silver lining in this whole nasty, tragic, heartbreaking, what I think is, I don't know of a bigger scandal in the history of the United States than kids being trafficked, raped, kidnapped, mutilated, all the things that went on, not just here in the US, but clearly around the world, right? If there's one silver lining, is that I am seeing outside of the United States, people in power being let go, being investigated, resigning, being stripped of titles. And I hope that's the beginning of serious investigation that leads to, if we can't do it in this country because our government doesn't want to, maybe another government that doesn't give a fuck will actually start calling out names and actually start, releasing stuff on the perpetrators of these crimes, not just the victims, which, for these victims that are still alive, like the re-victimization of people that bravely, have come forward and have explained this. All they asked for was, and some of them didn't even want this, but some of them said, can you please keep us private? Like, we don't want to see this again. Have it be all over the news. For this administration to be able to redact, not successfully all the time, clearly, he's all over Donald Trump's name as many times as they redacted it, and not be able to scan for nude bodies of children or names of victims. Y'all, the cruelty.
I forgot Brett Ratner. I forgot to throw him out there because Melania's got that little documentary out that Trump keeps talking about and says is so good. And who produced that movie is this gentleman, Brett Ratner, who is also in the files, man. It's just nasty and interwoven all the way around, y'all. The folks that are your leaders and your officials and all that sort of bullshit. Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah, and look, and this is how I'll tie in the First, Second Amendment, and Fourth Amendment, and Thomas Massie and my donation to his campaign. He's the only one that wants to cut spending. He's the only one that wants to keep protecting, at least on paper, and with his vote so far, First, Second, and Fourth Amendment. He's the only one that wants a full release of the Epstein files that I can see consistently across all those issues, right?
Yeah, a little bit of Rokana, a little bit.
Sure, on some issues, but Roe also wants to take guns. And so again, when it comes to the consistency of issues that are important to me, the one that I don't see with Thomas Massie is immigration, which I could go on a whole nother rant. I'm gonna leave that for another day, folks. But look, if I can get a senator or an administration that believes in the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, cutting down the deficit, no more foreign wars, not relying on foreign PACs to come in and influence our elections. I got to hear Republicans every day talk about voter ID, which sounds like common sense to me. Yeah, you should have an ID to go vote. Like, I agree with that. No, it doesn't seem complicated to me. I don't know why this is a partisan issue, but I got to hear about that every day. And these are the same people that want to tell me that the Second Amendment, Trump said you just can't bring a gun. And his law dog out in DC, you bring a gun, I don't care if you've got license carry, we're gonna arrest you. And oh, by the way, let me be clear. I think Don Lemon is a smug asshole journalist. I think what he did in that church was a foretaste. He wasn't the one that ran in there yelling and doing all of that, but he was the camera guy recording it and looking to interview people that were clearly, in some cases, panicking. I think there's better ways to protest, right? So clearly guilty of being an asshole. But for that guy to be arrested over that, with all of this nastiness going on, while the president's telling me you just can't have guns, we just can't do that, and simultaneously the courts and this administration is saying we can just make up a warrant. It can be an administrative warrant. Like, we don't need a judge to sign off on it. Like, I don't know if these people read the Constitution anymore, or if their backers, the backer, just says, hey, we got to shred it apart. Like, we're running the show now. You're not the captain of the ship, right? Trump hates Somalians so much. You know who the captain of the ship is now over here, man. And if you don't know, then you missed it when Netanyahu was over here, and immediately we went.
He's coming back, I hear.
Of course he is. We got some more things to do. We ain't hit Iran yet. I don't want to get into the conspiracy theory part, but I know Trump's not happy. This has been documented that his name wasn't redacted in all of those files because a lot of his name got out there and a lot of videos got out there. And he's going, what the hell happened? And it looks like to me what the heck happened was, you better play nice with Iran, or we'll give you the final set of files unredacted as well. That is speculation. The rest of what I said, none of that is speculation. All of that is actually happening or has happened.
And you even had Massey saying that he was being intimidated by the FBI, right? So, I've seen some folks use the FBI as cover, like, oh, the FBI investigated me and they didn't find any wrongdoing. Yeah, no shit, because like they're on the side of the administration. I mean, you got Massey saying that Patel is telling him to play ball or else, right? So, look, man, I mean, yeah, it goes all the way to the Justice Department and the so-called law enforcement agencies. But let us read together from the Constitution of the United States a couple of those amendments. We'll do the first, the second, and the fourth. So the first says that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. I'm pretty sure you saw some blatant intimidation of peaceful protesters over the past couple of weeks. And we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago. There was a court order, a judge saying that ICE had to stop doing that. Again, you don't need a court order for that. It's a fucking amendment of the Constitution. We don't need court orders to tell you can't impede with peaceful protesters. Let us read the second amendment.
Mind you, they've continued to do it.
Yeah. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And then you've got the president doing what you already said, tweeting that you're not allowed to bring a gun. You're not allowed to, if you come into D.C. and you bring a gun, you're going to get arrested. I'm pretty sure that's infringing on, again, what is an amendment of the U.S. Constitution. On to the fourth, which is really what I wanted to talk about this week. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. And yet, you've got Republican leaders. I got some of their name here. Mike Johnson is obviously one, the Speaker of the House. There's another one. What's his name here? Oh, from your state there, John Cornyn, saying that ICE, the art isn't subject to the same legal constraints as other law enforcement agencies. And to that I say, bull fucking shit. It's right there in the Constitution. You don't get to select which law enforcement agencies are above the law and above the law of the land. This was written by the forefathers. This is what our country is based upon, these rights and these freedoms. And you're literally trampling them, which again, I mentioned a bunch of times, the don't tread on me that's been usurped by the Republicans who don't understand what the hell it means. And so you got the Speaker of the House saying what I already said. These agencies aren't subject to the same legal constraints as other law enforcement agencies. And what else here? He said that he opposes codifying that immigration agents must obtain judicial warrants as generally required under the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution. Like, oh, he just opposes codifying that. It's codified, you fucking cocksucker.
ICE arrested a deaf student because he didn't respond to their commands, their verbal commands, even though he was signing to them, and they chased him and tackled him. And I mean, I could just continue on, man. The abuses continue. And look, I get it's fourth turning stuff, but there's other sides to that turning, y'all. And it's not just government abuse. I just leave it there. Yeah. Turnings ain't one-way streets. Just
get yourself a pocket Constitution and read it, man. There's some brutal stuff going on out there.
You won't believe you live in America right now if you just take a little cursory glance through the Constitution. You go, wait, what? Like, it's ridiculous. Look, thank y'all for hanging in there. It's been a full hour, a lot obviously to get off our chest, a lot going on in the metals market. Let's get to the premium portion. Actually, no, I can't do the people a disservice, y'all, because I saw the tweet earlier this week. Nick is going back to the city council, folks. And look, we have to, Nick. I'm sorry. We have to. We're going to be here for another little bit, y'all. But Nick's got Nick is a very, very ardent supporter of the law and fiscal prudency and, in getting the will of the people implemented, right? That's something that I know Nick, as a friend to him, I know he's passionate about, right? And so he's got a history of expressing that to the city council and expressing what I call wanting to better his community in a legal way, the way the Constitution says we can do, including city council meetings. And so the latest issue, I'll set the table for you and leave it to you to explain it.
I'll tell you more next week because the meeting is on the 17th. But essentially, they already had a progressive majority here in Spokane, and the one guy who made sense just lost his seat. So they're really steamrolling stuff now. And this really ties into national politics. So there's a new city councilwoman, I believe her name is Kate Tellis. And one of her first orders of business is to change the rules of the city council so you can't go and speak on individual items that are being proposed by the city council. Her reasoning was that city council meetings shouldn't be going until 1 a.m, which look, if you don't want to be at city council meetings, maybe you shouldn't have run for city council, right? And by the way, the meetings you're talking about that went to 1 a.m, were when so many people showed up, including myself, because you weren't doing the will of the people. That was last summer when 3/4 of the city voted to handle the homeless problem one way, and the city council did the exact opposite. Which was not only against the will of the people, but was the wrong thing to do. They ended up reversing on that months and months and months later, once homeless people were stabbing people in the neck in broad daylight right outside of City Hall. So, just like the FBI wants to silence Thomas Massey on the right, here you've got a progressive majority that's doing the same thing. They want to stymie and subdue the will and the voice of the people by changing the rules. They're moving the goalposts in real time. And so I'll go. I think they're voting on it on the 17th. I'll give them a piece of my mind. I'll report back on how it goes. They will, of course, vote 4-1 to change the rules of the city council, because that's just where we're at in this hyper-partisan America. But it's just so frustrating, and I try not to get myself so worked up. But when you do things as blatant as take people's time away to voice their opinions and oppose what you have to say and do, when they're the voters and they're the taxpayers, and you're raising their taxes at the same time, which is a whole nother issue I'll leave for another day. It's just wrong, man. And I don't know what else to say about that, but I'll come up with 2 minutes worth, I'm sure, on the next city council meeting.
If only we had, some reputable outlets, journalists, covering the important stuff, right? Instead of why we're mad that Bad Bunny is performing at the Super Bowl, and why we have to teach Americans that Puerto Rico is a part of America and Bad Bunny is a citizen, and we're mad about that. However you feel about that, guy seems like the nicest guy. You don't have to listen to the music. You don't have to dance to it. You don't have to watch it. But instead, what we're doing is we're dismantling like institutions of journalism in our country, like the Washington Post. And this has to be by design. This isn't somebody who cares about money. They just gutted 1/3 of their entire staff. They fired 300 people. And my brother worked there once upon a time. He left, I believe, some 9 or 10 months ago to work on a multi-year passion project of his, a book that he's working on. The timing couldn't have been better, but he's got a friend that was fired while she's in a war zone. Like, literally got the email that she's fired and has to figure out how to get back from the war zone. It's insane times out there, folks. And so again, a lot of this stuff is by design. The Washington Post stuff, like, it's not a coincidence that it was bought by like the uber billionaire, and little by little has been absolutely gutted. And the people that run CBS now, I could go on forever, man. This is all intentional, and it's all the institutions is what I'm trying to share here, right? And it's not partisan. It's just about the people behind the curtain getting what they want. They don't care about Democrats and Republicans. And I'm asking people to start voting with their interest more, and continue to be passionate and continue to protest. And yes, do it peacefully. If you have that option, right? But we need more of that, not less. That's for damn sure, because the institutions we had that used to blow the cover off a lot of this stuff are getting gutted one at a time. And the people that are supposed to be protecting those amendments and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights are doing the exact opposite. They're shredding it up, folks. So I'll leave it there. I am Gerardo Del Real, along with my partner, Mr. Nick Hodge. This was the 352nd episode of our weekly therapy session. we call investing in Bizarro World. Have a phenomenal week out there, everyone. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and have at it. Be good, y'all.
Enjoy the Super Bowl and the wings. See ya.